It's year two under Chris Beard for Ole Miss, and there's probably more excitement this season for basketball in Oxford than there has been in a very, 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 very long time.
With solid three-point shooting, a coach with a strong reputation in year two, and five returners, is Ole Miss ready to make some noise this year in the SEC?
It's the Ole Miss season preview on the Hoop Southbound Show. There was a lot of chaotic talk last season about Ole Miss and like they're gonna go do all this crazy stuff with Chris Beard, and then it just never materialized that way at all. If people who kept their feet on the ground, but there was a lot of people jumping up on the Ole Miss bus last season, and it was an exciting time. And they still got a team that's moving in a good direction. Under Chris Beard, who's of course one of the best basketball coaches out there. So like this is a situation that Ole Miss is doing very well in right now, and they've got a team that looks like it could be one of the best teams that Ole Miss has had in years this year in the SEC.
Yeah, we had some surprises last season with Ole Miss. A lot of people were kind of on the border if they were going to support this team or not. But after a couple of wins, people got behind them pretty quick.
Real quick.
Um, it obviously, like you said, didn't materialize like everybody was kind of hoping it would. But there were some, road bumps with what they had expected out of their players. So hopefully this season they're able to kind of carve out those issues and build a better roster around this coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Chris Beard's put together something here very special. But like, let's start like we've done every preview, talk about last season. And there's one thing that's in here a lot. There's a lot of firsts and a lot of best since last season with Ole Miss.
Yeah, so let's dive into it. They finished the season 20 and 12, went 7 and 11 in conference. Their first 20-win season since 2019 and the best win percentage since 2016. They were ranked 10th in the SEC and they qualified for an NIT bid, but they passed on it. They were ranked for the first time since the 2019 season and finished 86th in KenPom. This is their best KenPom finish since 2021 and the first time being in the top 100 since 2021.
Yeah, no, impressive. It's a start. It's a serious start here for Ole Miss. I know for a lot of SEC teams, those would be disappointing seasons, but like for Ole Miss and the history they've had in basketball, this is an exceptional going in the good direction that they want to go in. For Ole Miss, remember this is a team that's only made the tournament historically 10 times or 9 times, and they're looking for their 10th time to make the NCAA tournament. They've got a chance to do that this year. So let's talk about those storylines. Year two under Chris Beard. So fun fact. Chris Beard has never gone more than a season without making the NCAA tournament at any level. Whether we're talking about McMurray, Angelo State, whatever, man makes the tournament and gets there as fast as possible. Also, last season was Beard's worst finish in conference play ever. Prior to last year, Beard had never finished worse than seventh in conference standings. Year two has always been a second place finish, with the exception of the 2020-2021 season where he finished third. So he's consistently finished third or better in conference play in year two at whatever school he's been at. I'm not saying they're going to finish top three in the SEC, but don't be surprised if they end up cracking the upper class of the SEC this season, like sixth or better, for how deep this conference is. Additionally, this is going to be about making the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2019 for Ole Miss. You heard that 2019 year he popped up there a lot. That's the last time the Ole Miss ended up making the NCAA tournament, and then that was their best finish in 2021, top six. He is not. Ole Miss has not been a top five SEC team since 2015. Additional storylines: Texas comes to Oxford this season. Of course, that's Chris Beard's old school, and then this might be right now the golden era of Mississippi State versus Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl of basketball. Both teams doing exceptionally well, going in the right direction. Mississippi State under Chris Jans has been very successful the last two seasons, and then Ole Miss has really put things together to go in a positive directions since they ended up moving past Kermit there and Ole Miss. So right now we're probably getting into the golden era right now of the Egg Bowl of basketball. Very exciting times if you're living in the state of Mississippi for basketball right now.
Definitely so. I think this only brings more basketball fans out of Mississippi, kind of out of the woodworks, because you've got these two teams competing, much like kind of the Iron Bowl with Auburn and Alabama. You got to pick a side. So I think it's one of the more interesting story arcs coming out of Mississippi, and something to look forward to kind of increase the state of basketball in the state of Mississippi.
And this isn't just like, oh, we're just going to compete against each other, pick a side. No, 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 no. This is two teams that are going that have a chance to make the NCAA tournament, playing each other and trying to get good wins against each other, meaningful wins, not just more outside of just the rivalry, but to that resume to have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. This is going to be a big, big year in the Egg Bowl basketball for sure between this. So let's talk about some of these players we need to get to know.
I mean, I don't think people are going to have to get to know this first player that we've got on our list. An amazing shock for Ole Miss fans. Matthew Murrell is back again. Ole Miss found their staple leader in Murrell, and he is on his way to leading them to another great season. 16.2 points per game, 3.6 boards, 2.4 assists, and 1.3 steals. Murrell shoots the three at 39.8% and 46.4% from the field. He is one of the best guards in the SEC. And as long as he has the pieces that he needs around him, the Rebels team is going to be hot this year under the leadership of Matthew Murrell.
Yeah, so Matthew Murrell got a chance to go to the NBA Combine. He's been doing the NBA Combine stuff for the last 2 seasons. He's got a really, really good chance to continue to make that resume to where someone will take a chance on him, either late in the draft or in free agency. He's a really darn good basketball player and one to get excited about. But he does have a partner to help him out now in this backcourt for Ole Miss, and that is a player I really like out of Virginia Tech, and that's Sean Pedulla. 16.4 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, and 4.6 assists. He's a great point guard and one that can do a lot of damage against you. He also shot, now get this, he shot 32.5% from three last season, but he was asked to do a lot from the production of that. He can shoot better than that, and he probably can help Ole Miss get up there a little bit higher and their chances of getting that magical 36% from three for Ole Miss this season. And that opens up a lot of doors when you're talking about things that people look at when you're talking about high ceiling basketball teams. Champadoula helps a lot there.
Another staple returner we're seeing coming back, Jaemyn Brakefield. He averaged in 22 or 29.2 minutes per game last season, which is big when you're looking at the front court. Averages 12.9 points per game, 4.9 boards, 2.4 assists. He shoots an average of 47.7% from the field, and he can convert from the perimeter at 36.2%. Got that magic number just a little bit over it. And he's one of those pieces that it's a hard spot to fill when you lose a good forward. But thankfully, the Rebels won't need to. He is back to kind of be that dynamic duo that you're looking for with Matthew Murrell or possibly Sean Pedulla this season.
All right, let's talk about this team. There's some good players here all around. Another player that we definitely need to talk about is Mikel Brown-Jones, graduate player, 6'8", 225 pounds. Came close to 19 points a game last season for UNC Greensboro. And that's a tough team to play. A lot of good teams come out of the SoCon. It's one of those conferences that they only get one bid to the NCAA tournament, but it's a tough one to get through. He also came close to 8 boards a night and shot 54% from the field, and he also lit it up at 43.1% from deep, and he converted at the free throw line, Maddie. 78.7%. That's 3 for 4.
My favorite stat.
It's the best stat. It's the best stat ever. You got to convert those easy, easy points. He's one I like a lot. And then Dre Davis is another player, comes from that Seton Hall team that did exceptionally well in the NIT last season. 15 points per game, nearly 6 rebounds a night. Another good player with a lot of experience. He's a graduate player. Those are two players I really just want to highlight out of this transfer class for Ole Miss. Maddie, what's also standing out to you on this roster?
What's standing out to me on this roster, one of the freshmen coming in, because I was so critical about this Ole Miss team in their
In the
front
front
court
court,
last.
are you going where I think you're going with this? Because, like, yeah, I'm interested too.
You've got John Ball coming in,
Hmm.
7'2". If the same thing happens that happened last year with their big man in the front court, I will pull my hair out. I will be coming on here. It won't be a bald cap. It'll be gone. Because if another 7-footer for this Ole Miss team doesn't get rebounds and doesn't convert second chance opportunities, I don't know what Beard is doing in Ole Miss.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, he's a good basketball player. He's in the top 70 in almost every website you're looking at here. He played some overtime elite ball. He's a good basketball player. John Ball is good. Good player. Someone that he's still a little bit raw. He's still a little bit raw, but we can see what level he can turn it up to. And he's played against tough competition in his entire career. So he's definitely a player to look out for as well. And other players just throwing it out here because there's a lot. This is a good transfer class. Malik Dia, good basketball player. Davin Barnes, good basketball player. A lot of guys on this team, a lot of guys who can shoot from three at 35%, 34% or better, and have played some decent level competition and have, put up double digits every single night. This has been a good class here to grab on this roster. I do want to note this is one of the more least experienced teams when it comes to NCAA tournament minutes. So that's one of the areas of concern. Only 101 minutes played for this team, but like one of the biggest things though for this Ole Miss team that I think is going to help them, this is one of the better retentions in the SEC. Only 35% scoring production loss between seasons. That's one of the least big hit areas in the SEC this year by team. Let's go ahead and turn the index and take a deeper look here at Ole Miss. So let's go ahead and let's start with the big three roster items here. This is based on Evan Mia's research that was conducted this offseason on the best way to build a roster in college basketball today in the transfer portal era. The first item we're looking for is talent. And when it comes to recruiting, Ole Miss has done okay. But where Chris Beard has had his most success was in the transfer portal. He's had back-to-back transfer classes now in the top 20 for 2023 and 2024, number 11 in 2023 and number 16 in 2024. So this is going to be a talented squad, not the most elite talented team in the SEC, but talented nonetheless. And then you're also looking for 50% playing time retention as well. For Ole Miss, they're returning 121.8 minutes per game between five players. That's almost 20 minutes per player that's being returned to this team. And then we're looking at those second year players. You're returning Matthew Murrell, Jalen Murray, Brakefield, Caldwell, Coward. Really good retention here for Ole Miss this offseason. So let's go ahead and look at the potential that Ole Miss has when we look at the Champions Index. Now, the Champions Index is based off of items that Vegas uses to determine their odds in March Madness and teams that have the potential to make a run deep into the tournament. There's more items than what you're just seeing here, and we'll add those throughout the season to our big board. But for now, this is the items that we can start getting a feel for the team on. First, you want two of your three top scorers to be upperclassmen, want that experienced leadership. For Ole Miss, they've got this box pretty well checked, and they've got a lot of upperclassmen on this team. Brown Jones, 18.9 points per game. Diaz, 16.9 points per game. And then Sean Pedulla at 16.4 points per game. And there's more players who can help lead this team as well, like Brakefield and Matthew Murrell, who can find themselves here. So I think Ole Miss has got this upperclassman leadership box checked. Then you're looking for a team that shoots 36% from three or better. For Ole Miss, they're right there. Last season, with the players who played college basketball last year or have a year of experience at least under their belt, this roster shot 36.8% from three last season, and they've got some shooters on this team. I think Ole Miss is going to be effective from deep throughout the course of this season. Now, the big thing here and what's going to be the determining factor and the limiting factor for Ole Miss this season is you want a top 40 KenPom defense. Last year, this was the lacking area for Ole Miss, but Chris Beard has been successful in the past putting together good defenses, and I think that we're going to see a significant improvement from 141st in the country last season to being somewhere close to that top 50 range. We'll see how it goes, but I have seen Chris Beard teams in the past play decent defense, so I would expect Ole Miss to make a jump this season with a year now of continuance under Chris Beard. So very optimistic outlook here on the Champions Index. I would say that they've got two boxes out of three checked with the potential here to have that third one be really close to checked, somewhere maybe close to considering this a 2.5, 2 and 2.5, something like that. So really good potential for Ole Miss coming into this season.
All right, we can talk analytics all day long, but it's not going to matter until we actually see some basketball. So let's jump to the schedule Ole Miss will start the season out against a couple of mid-major programs. They'll face Long Island and Grambling State, and then they'll face South Alabama in the Tad Pad for a throwback game at home. They'll follow that game up with a tough game against Colorado State and South Haven, Mississippi, and then they'll face Oral Roberts back in Oxford. Then we get to Feast Week, where Ole Miss will head to the Rady's Children's Invitational.
Yeah, Rady's Children Invitational out there in San Diego this year features some pretty good basketball teams. Ole Miss is going to be facing North Carolina State. This is not the same North Carolina State team that made the Final Four last year. I want to be very, very clear about that. Yeah, I expect North Carolina State to be much more of the team that we saw for the majority of the season for North Carolina State for the majority of the time. Also, DJ Burns and other players are not back for the Wolfpack as well. And then you've also got BYU and Purdue in this MTE. Purdue here looks to be the favorite in this tournament. Pretty obvious why. They got Fletcher Lawyer and a few other really good players on that team. They the only big missing piece here from Purdue is that they did lose Zach Edey, so he's no longer with the team. And then BYU is starting out a new coach now that Mark Pope has moved over to Kentucky. So it's going to be a new look team there on the campus at UC San Diego for what is going to be, I believe, the second year now for this tournament, and one that's going to be really, really exciting and a good field and chances to get some really quality wins here out there in San Diego for Ole Miss.
Yeah, it should be a good MTE. I think one that will kind of help Beard and his squad get ready for the season ahead. Because after the MTE, we've got the ACC SEC Challenge where Ole Miss will face Louisville in the KFC Yum Center.
Yeah, not Louisville under Kenny Payne. I want to make that clear. This
They've been
is
all the games,
Louisville.
David.
Do what? Kenny Payne won
But
those
he's been all
games.
the games.
Kenny Payne, whether Ole Miss fans don't know what we're talking about right now. That is a Kentucky Louisville thing. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's not the same era, the Kenny Payne era, where they just really, really had a rough time. Pat Kelsey comes in to replace Kenny Payne from Charleston, and they spent some money in the NIL world, in the transfer portal. Terrence Edwards comes from James Madison. He averaged 17.2 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, and 3.4 assists last season for JMU. They've also got Pryor, who's coming in from USF last year. USF was one of the better teams in the American last year. 13 points a game, 7.9 rebounds, and 1.9 assists. And then they've also got Terrell, who's picked up kind of as a diamond in the rough player from Long Beach State as well. 12 points a game, 8.4 rebounds, and 4.5 assists, and 1.5 steals a night, and 1.4 blocks a night. Kid's only 6'5", and he's out there getting blocks and steals like you wouldn't believe it, playing some good defense. This is going to be a tough ask. Louisville is a much improved basketball team, and Ole Miss is going to be on the road in this one. That being said, I don't think you're going to be looking at this terrible situation if you lose to Louisville like you do in the past, where you got like, if you lose to Louisville, congratulations, you have a quad 4, quad 3 loss. I don't think that's the case this year. This has all the potential of being a quad 2, quad 1 opportunity for Ole Miss. So if they go out and win this thing, could be a really darn good win too for Ole Miss. So Louisville looks to be one of the more promising games on the schedule, and what could be one of the more entertaining games in the ACC SEC Challenge.
Definitely so. Let's move on. Ole Miss will then face Lindenwood back at home, Southern Miss in Biloxi, and then they'll have Southern and Queens back in Oxford. After that, Ole Miss will wrap up their non-conference schedule against Memphis.
Yeah, so Memphis is projected to be number one in the AAC. Memphis fans really don't care about the AAC anymore. It is a weak conference, and if they weren't projected to be number one, that would be a problem in a lot of Memphis fans' minds right now. This Tigers team, 10 players from last year are gone. David Jones is gone. Tomlin's gone. Quinterly is gone. This is a whole new team that Penny Hardaway is putting together, and he put it together out of the transfer portal. So this is going to be a new look team. So some of the players that have been brought in, Tyrese Hunter out of Texas, 11 points per game, 4 assists a night. Rogers out of Wichita State, 16 points per game. Those players coming in to make an impact as well. Carter, 10 points a game out of UTSA. Really good players to help things out. For Memphis, this team is the harder part of their schedule is typically the non-conference portion of the schedule because they're trying to build a resume. This looks to be a tournament team. The only way this really goes bad for Memphis is if they really mess up in conference play and hurt themselves. So this is an opportunity to get some good win, to get a good win for Ole Miss if they beat Memphis. So it's an opportunity. It looks to be a quad two game. Honestly, though, is the way it's kind of shaping out. There's been a lot of off the court drama with Memphis this season. So we'll see exactly how things turn out. Penny Hardaway ended up firing a lot of his assistant coaches, including Rick Stansberry, and got a complete overhaul done this offseason. So a lot of off court issues with Memphis as well. But still looks like a team that Ole Miss should be able to find a quality. They'll have a quality matchup here to help their net resume.
Okay, David. So we've talked about, some of the better games on this non-conference schedule, some of those that are hopefully just gonna let this team gel, kind of get in a rhythm. What are your thoughts overall when you look over the non-con?
When we broke apart Ole Miss last season back in late December, early January, whenever it was, when we talked about like, hey, let's take a serious look at this Ole Miss team because they were undefeated and they were in the top 25 at the time and they still didn't make the tournament. And we kept going, look at this team, look at it seriously because the resume is not good. And the analytics behind this team really don't say that they're going to do well in SEC play. And that really turned out to be true. Now, sometimes numbers lie. I'm not going to say anything like that, but the resume was not good. The resume was just seriously not good. They had a lot of weak opponents last season. This year's kind of almost there. It's a little better though. It's a little bit better here this season. Like Colorado State, teams out in the Mountain West have played some really good basketball these last couple of years, and Colorado State looks to be a good game that they're going to play. They've got some opportunities out there, and the Rady's Children's Invitational having an MTE this year should be helpful for Ole Miss as well. Louisville looks to be a much better team than what they have in the past. And then Memphis, we don't know exactly who Memphis is going to be, but it's another good opportunity for them. So they've got better opponents on this schedule. So it shouldn't be as devastating if they don't do well in SEC play. I think they're going to do better than they did last season in SEC play, and they should be a better team. And then some of those weaker in games, like Southern Miss is going to be in Biloxi. They've got some neutral site games that they're going to be playing, and that should help their resume as well because that way the net fluctuates there. So they've got a chance here with the games that are presented in front of them to be much better than they were last year when we were kind of talking about this. But there's still the potential if they don't take advantage of some of these games that are high quality opponents, they could be right back where they were last year, only with some additional losses on the resume. But they got chances this year, and that's much better than what it was last year because last year was. It was like reading the blueprint on how not to get quality wins and have it out, be undefeated in non-conference. Like that was it. Last year's non-conference was rough. This looks much better. It's improved.
Yeah, definitely so. I think we're going to see hopefully a more improved Ole Miss scheduling system from here on out, kind of after all of the backlash they got from it last season.
Yeah, it punished them last year. It punished it. And that partially it falls on the coach and it falls on his staff. Arkansas under Eric Musselman, Anthony Ruda had a big portion of that where they would scout opponents out and make sure that they found, even in their weaker non-conference games when they were playing Bradley, for instance, they were trying to find teams that would finish somewhere in the top three of their mid-major conference. So even when you were playing a weak team, you were playing a team that would have some quality behind it and show well in your resume when the committee's sitting there going, okay, this team's in, this team's in, this team, all the automatic bids from the mid-major level. You had like two or three who were in there. You remember that first year that we all saw how this formula worked? It was North Texas, Abilene Christian. There were some other teams in there too. Abilene Christian and North Texas ended up getting upsets in the NCAA tournament while they were at it, and Arkansas played those teams, beat them, and it looked really good on the resume. Arkansas was walking into the NCAA tournament with a 3 seed. So that it really falls on how you schedule as a coach. And I do think that this is improved. And I think Chris Beard is going to be making an emphasis on it moving forward. I think right now the goal is to make the NCAA tournament. And that's the biggest goal. You just don't want to hurt yourself here. So you got some quality opponents to help yourself out with.
Definitely so.
All right, let's go to the SEC schedule. Ole Miss will get at home Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Away, they're going to be facing Arkansas, Alabama, Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Florida. And then for their home and home games, they got LSU, Mississippi State, and Auburn. Maddie, Thoughts on this conference schedule?
As I look over the conference schedule, I think the home looks like gravy for this Ole Miss team. You've got some teams that are going to be good, but may have a little bit of difficulty on an away floor. So I think this is a big opportunity, especially when you look at Texas, when you look at Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Kentucky should all be solid teams in the SEC this season. So getting a home win against them will be solid for this team. Then you look at the away schedule. You got Arkansas, you got Alabama, you got Florida, some of the better teams in the SEC on their own court. Those are going to be hard ask for this Ole Miss team. And then you're home and home. You said you got the Egg Bowl with Mississippi State home and home series. That could go either way. And then Auburn's going to be a tough team to play on either court. And then LSU, one of the more lower tiered teams, they might be able to get two on them. So I like this schedule for Ole Miss, but that away schedule is rough.
Yeah, the away schedule is very, very, very tough. But yeah, you're right. They got some good opportunities at home in front of them to get some quality wins, at least some Q2s and Q1s on this resume. I do have faith that they'll be able to navigate and win some games they shouldn't win. That's kind of where I'm at with Ole Miss at this point. Maddie, what are your expectations for Ole Miss this season?
Looking over Ole Miss, much like last season, I don't think their non-conference really helps them out to prepare for the slate that they're up against in conference play. While we mentioned it did get better, I see Ole Miss sitting somewhere around 18 and 13, and I have them much higher than they should be slated, but due to my lack of planning, they're at my top available spot at number 11.
So, I'm a little bit bigger on Ole Miss than you are, I guess. And look, where you have them at is not just the craziest thing I've heard. If you still listen to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball, Matt Norlander actually has Ole Miss 12th in the SEC. Not a lot of faith in them either. I got them sixth. I've got a lot more faith than what some other people might have them at. Ole Miss is a team that could shoot, they could play well. I've got them going 20 and 11, and maybe even 21 and 10 might be on the table as well. It just depends on how things shirk out on some of these 50-50 games I've got for them. I think 21's a possibility for them. But yeah, I've got them as one of my upper end teams in the SEC. I think this is going to be a quality Ole Miss team and one that I think is kind of in the tier level there with Kentucky and Texas this season. They should be able to play very, very well. I've got them kind of one step ahead because their 3-point shooting is excellent, and Chris Beard's got a reputation of doing well, and for when he's got little bit of time to work on his team. So I'm expecting good things from Ole Miss this season. I don't think they're going to be a pushover at all. I think it's going to be tough, and I think anybody who's got Ole Miss in their schedule is asking for a tough game, and any team that's going to take a trip to the Pavilion is asking for trouble this season. So it's going to be rough getting in there, and especially if the fans are feeling it, because I do think things are going to go fairly well for Ole Miss this season. All right, guys, if you have not already, please like and subscribe to the Hoop Southbound Show. We greatly appreciate you guys being here. How do you think that Ole Miss is going to do this season? Please drop it in the comment section and let us know what you think about this Ole Miss team. If you haven't already, you can also check out our episode on Out of the Portal, where we broke down Ole Miss's transfer portal class and give you a bunch of information about the players that are coming to this Ole Miss team. So, guys, please like, subscribe, comment. Join us back here all season as we talk basketball, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.